We are going live on Facebook now. We'll start in another minute or so. Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all for the 440th Telangana Jana Vedika's every Sunday session. Today's session is based on 131st coming birthday of birth anniversary of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and the Constitution of India. For this important session, we have invited one of the most legal luminaries, popular legal luminaries in Telangana and probably all over India, Sri L. Ravichandra. I thank him on behalf of myself and on behalf of you for accepting our invitation and readily accepting to speak on this subject. Since thank you, sir. Thank you. Since Ravichandra Garu is he will speak in this forum is he's well versed in English too, but it will be a bilingual program for the convenience of other audiences. I welcome him, and before wasting any much of your time, I would like to read out the preamble of the Constitution as our practice is in Telangana Jana Vedika. And before that, before the speaker takes over, Dr. Akota Srinivasulu will give a introduction of him and also the subject. Thank you. I'll read out this preamble in Telugu because every time James is doing it in English, so this time I want to do it in Telugu. Thank you. రాజ్యాంగ పాఠ్యం. భారత ప్రజలమైన మేము భారతదేశాన్ని సర్వసత్తాక సామ్యవాద లౌకిక ప్రజాస్వామ్య గణతంత్ర రాజ్యంగా నిర్మించుకోవడానికి పౌరులందరికీ సాంఘిక ఆర్థిక రాజకీయ న్యాయాన్ని ఆలోచన భావ ప్రకటన విశ్వాసము ధర్మము ఆరాధన స్వాతంత్రాన్ని అంతస్తులోను అవకాశాల్లోనూ సమానత్వాన్ని చేకూర్చడానికి వారందరిలో వ్యక్తిత్వ గౌరవాన్ని జాతీయ సమైక్యతను సంరక్షిస్తూ సౌభాతృత్వాన్ని పెంపొంచడానికి మన ఈ రాజ్యాంగ పరిషత్తులో 1949 నవంబర్ 26వ తేదీన ఎంపిక చేసుకుని శాసనంగా రూపొందించుకున్న ఈ రాజ్యాంగాన్ని మాకు మేము సమర్పించుకుంటున్నాం. థ్యాంక్ యూ. Before I hand over the mic to the moderator, Dr. Akota Srinivasulu, to moderate and invite the speaker to speak, I thank you all and I wish you all a happy Sri Rama Navami. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Telangana Jana Vedika Zoom online చేసినటువంటి పెద్దలు రవిచంద్ర గారికి, వేదిక సభ్యులు, మిత్రులు అందరికీ సాయంకాల నమస్కారాలు తెలియజేస్తూ అందరికీ స్వాగతం, సుస్వాగతం. ఇవాళ మనము ఎన్నుకున్నటువంటి అంశం డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ భారత రాజ్యాంగం అనేటువంటి అంశాన్ని ఎన్నుకోవడం అనేటువంటి జరిగింది. ఎందుకంటే ప్రధానంగా ఈ నెల 14వ తేదీన డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ గారి జయంతిని పురస్కరించుకొని ఈ టాపిక్ ను మనం ప్రధానంగా ఎన్నుకోవడం జరిగింది. రాజ్యాంగం గురించి తెలియని వారు దేశంలో ఎవరు ఉండరని చెప్పేసి నేను భావిస్తున్నాను. ప్రధానంగా 75 వసంతాల స్వతంత్ర భారతదేశంలో రాజ్యాంగం వచ్చేసి 72 సంవత్సరాలు గడిచిపోయింది. 73వ సంవత్సరంలో మనం అడుగు పెట్టాం. ఈ 73 వసంత భారత రాజ్యాంగం ఈ దేశంలో కోట్లాది మంది ప్రజలకు కావలసినటువంటి హక్కులను కానీ, స్వేచ్ఛ కానీ, సమానత్వాన్ని కానీ, సౌవర్తృత్వాన్ని కానీ, బడుగు బలైన వర్గాలకు సంబంధించినటువంటి అనేక హక్కులను అందులో పొందుపరిచినటువంటి ఒక గొప్ప మేధావి, ప్రపంచ మేధావి డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ గారని చెప్పడంలో ఏమాత్రం సందేహం లేదు. దాన్ని ఆధారంగా చేసుకొని ప్రపంచంలో ఉండేటువంటి అతి ప్రధానమైనటువంటి రాజ్యాంగాలను సుమారుగా 158 రాజ్యాంగాలను సూక్ష్మంగా పరిశీలించి దాంట్లో ఉండేటువంటి ప్రధానమైనటువంటి అంశాలు ఒకటిగా చేసి ఇవాళ మన భారత రాజ్యాంగం మన ముందు ఉంది అంటే దానికి ప్రధానమైనటువంటి కారకులు డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ గారు. వారి యొక్క కృషి ఫలితంగానే ప్రపంచంలో అదే అతిపెద్ద ప్రజాస్వామిక దేశంగా ఇవాళ భారతదేశం కొనసాగుతుంది అంటే కూడా డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ గారి యొక్క కృషి అని చెప్పడంలో కూడా ఏమాత్రం సందేహం లేదు. అయితే ఈ మధ్య కాలంలో తెలంగాణ రాష్ట్ర ముఖ్యమంత్రి గారు భారత రాజ్యాంగాన్ని మార్చాలనేటువంటి ఒక అంశాన్ని తెర మీదకి తీసుకురావడం, అది పెద్ద చర్చగా మారడం అనేటువంటిది కూడా మనం చూస్తున్నాం. నిజానికి భారత రాజ్యాంగం ఈ దేశంలో ఉండేటువంటి అత్యధిక ప్రజల యొక్క వారి యొక్క హక్కులను లేదా స్వేచ్ఛ సమానత్వాన్ని పొందుతున్నారని చెప్పుకునేటువంటి ప్రయత్నం జరిగింది, జరుగుతూనే ఉంది. ఏదో కొద్ది మందికి రాజ్యాంగ ఫలాలు అందలేదు అనేటువంటి దృష్టితోని దాన్ని రాజ్యాంగాన్ని మార్చాలి లేదా దాన్ని పునర్లిఖించాలి లేదా సమీక్షించాలి అనేటువంటి ఒక వాదన కూడా ఈ మధ్య కాలంలో పెద్ద ఎత్తున రావడం అనేటువంటిది జరుగుతుంది. కొంతమంది వ్యక్తులకు మాత్రమే రాజ్యాంగ ఫలాలు అందుతున్నాయి, మెజారిటీ పీపుల్కి అందుతాయి అనేటువంటిది కొంతమంది వ్యక్తుల యొక్క వాదన. ఏది ఏమైనప్పటికీ భారత రాజ్యాంగం ద్వారానే మనం ఇవాళ ప్రభుత్వాలు కొనసాగుతున్నాయి. దాంట్లో భాగంగానే అది తెలంగాణ రాష్ట్రం కానీ, ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ రాష్ట్రం కానీ, కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వాలు కానీ ఏది ఏమైనా అంటే భారత రాజ్యాంగాన్ని మించింది ఏదీ లేదు ఈ దేశంలో అనేటువంటిది చెప్పడంలో కూడా ఏమాత్రం సందేశించవలసినటువంటి అవసరం లేదు. అందులో భాగంగానే డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ భారత రాజ్యాంగం అనేటువంటి అంశం పైన శ్రీ రవిచంద్ర గారు వారు సీనియర్ అడ్వకేట్ గా గత 40 సంవత్సరాల నుండి అడ్వకేట్ గా పనిచేస్తున్నారు. ప్రధానంగా ఒక 30 సంవత్సరాల నుండి వారు పార్ట్ టైం జర్నలిస్ట్ గా కూడా పనిచేస్తున్నారు. వారు వివిధ అనేక రకాలైనటువంటి కేసులను వాళ్ళు విజయాన్ని పొందుతూ ముందుకు పోతున్నారు. ప్రధానంగా ఈ యొక్క దళితాలకు సంబంధించినటువంటి దళిత సాహిత్యానికి సంబంధించినటువంటి కానీ రాజ్యాంగపరమైనటువంటి విషయాల పట్ల కానీ అనేకమైనటువంటి వాటిలలో వారు అనేకమైనటువంటి వ్యాసాలు కూడా రాసినడం జరిగింది. ముఖ్యంగా ఈ యొక్క డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ గారి యొక్క భారత రాజ్యాంగం అనేటువంటి అంశం మీద శ్రీ రవిచంద్ర గారిని మాట్లాడవలసిందిగా వారిని సాధారణంగా ఆహ్వానిస్తున్నాను. డాక్టర్ రవిచంద్ర.
Thank you very much. You must excuse me that I will speak more in English than in Telugu.
No issues, sir. No issues.
Question answers మాత్రం నేను తెలుగులో జవాబు చెప్పగలుగుతాను.
Right.
కొంతసేపు తర్వాత ఈయన తెలుగు బదులు ఇంగ్లీష్ లో మాట్లాడడమే నయం అనిపిస్తుంది అందరికీ. నేను ఇంగ్లీష్ లో మాట్లాడుతున్నాను. ఇన్ని ఏండ్ల వసంతాలు అన్నారు. Before I start, how long am I required to speak, Andy? What is the session duration?
You can speak for 1 hour, sir. No issues.
1 hour ఏం మాట్లాడు?
Okay, మీరు 40 minutes అయితే మాట్లాడండి.
45 minutes.
The whole session is for 45 minutes.
No.
2.5.
I will cut. I will speak minimum and have a discussion for a longer period of time. I'll take as many questions as are possible.
Right.
Because one man speaking for a long time can be very boring, especially if the speaker is me. I believe that from 1950 till now, how many ever summers or springs we have had, much of what should have happened has happened. There's no doubt about that. But much more of what should not have happened has also happened. There lies the Indian tragedy. Today, while we gather out of respect, out of regard, to arguably one of the and a person whose contribution to the Indian Republic cannot be underestimated. We must realize that this Indian Republic, KCR or no KCR, has a lot of potholes in it. Don't forget the Chief Justice of the country just 3 days ago made a comment that today even governments are criticizing the judicial officers. The executive has a stranglehold on every policy decision that takes place in this country. Don't forget that Narasimha Rao's success story is largely because he had a Manmohan Singh to back him up, or vice versa. We have multiple examples in various states how the chief secretary and the chief minister are so pally that they don't even want to change them for something. Now, this is a reflection of how the Indian Constitution is working. Also, how the Indian legislature is constituted, what is its composition, how many people have criminal backgrounds, and how many people have criminal cases against them. And I draw a distinction between these two categories of people. And how effectively good has the Indian judicial system been? These are all reflections of how good the Indian Constitution is. Interestingly, when the Constituent Assembly debates were going on, I do not remember who, I think it was Swami Satchidananda, who said that if this constitution fails you, it means that we have failed the constitution and not vice versa. But today, when you still have a large section of India in poverty, and when laborers moved from South India back to their homes during COVID, they represented an economy that is lopsided. Many of them did not have food to eat and went back to their villages. And today it is the admitted case of the government of Telangana that real estate is a booming business in the state. Juxtaposition these two, one next to the other. The migrant laborer is the man who comes to the state to do coolie work. He does not have food to eat for 2 months. He walks from here to Odisha and West Bengal. On the other hand, the urban development minister of the state claims that real estate is a booming business in the state. This is a reflection of the Indian Constitution. I'm not even going to argue here whether it is the executive, whether it's the judiciary, whether it's the legislature. But we need to understand that the great constitution that we have can only be good as the people who run it. Therefore, I strongly believe that we don't have a great constitution, not because the constitution is bad, but because it permitted that area where human error, human blundering, human arrogance, and human apathy to suffering have got the better of the letter and spirit of the Indian Constitution. I may give you an impression that I'm talking more on the Indian Constitution than I'm talking on the topic of the day, that is Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. But no, I'm not, because whenever I say the Indian Constitution, I'm almost saying Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Today, we know him as a jurist. We know him as an economist. And unfortunately, we know him even more as a Dalit leader. Now, the tragedy is, we look at Nehru as a Kashmiri Pandit. We look at Ambedkar as a Dalit. We look at Mahatma Gandhi as a Bhania. And this is one thing that Dr. Ambedkar fought for with his life. today, a cross-section of India would like to see him as that leader who renounced Hinduism and took to Dalit movement and Buddhism because he was a Dalit. In an increasingly polarized society, we stick labels. I remember many years ago, I think it was during the Mandal agitation, I think Dr. Mari Chenna Reddy was the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. And there's a statue of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar near the tank bird. And one day when the agitation was going on, people decided to insult Dr. B.R. Ambedkar by throwing up a ugly garland over him made of shoes and leather. And the agitators were called for a meeting with the Chief Minister. I was a part of that meeting. And after the Chief Minister twice said, "You can't do this, you can't do this," I told him in so many words, "Sir, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is not a Dalit leader. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is a national leader. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar does not belong to the community in which he was born, also because he did not choose the community into which he was born. He himself was a man who believed. He was also instrumental, understand, in that constitutional provision which said reservation for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes will be only there for 10 years. Can we today turn around and say, therefore, he did injustice to the Dalits by saying it should be only for a certain specified period? No. Therefore, those who try to own up Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, please do not parochialize his contribution. Please do not restrict his contributions to the country, to the new Indian Republican polity, by calling him a mere Dalit leader or a leader who represented the interests of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. No, he was not. He was much more than that. He played, of course, a very important role, a pivotal role in the making of the Indian Constitution. His knowledge of law is beyond question. Follow his constitutional debates, you can understand the depth from which a man is speaking. In a profession which is characteristically elitist, the legal profession by character is elitist. Ma tata lawyer, nenu lawyer ni, ma tata judge, nenu judge ni, ma koduku judge, nenu ma kalam vaste rajulu laga judgelu Raj Kapoor family laga aitu untayi. Manchida chedu anedi we don't have to talk about it today. Suffice it is for me to say that in an elitist world like this, especially in the 40s and in the 50s, to have a man from the community that he belonged to, not only to fight the challenges that he faced and come ahead, but to be accepted as an authority on the Constitution, was great work. మన దేశంలో సింబాలిజం కి మనం చాలా మర్యాదలు ఇస్తాం. ఒక లేడీని ప్రెసిడెంట్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా చేసేసాం అంటే మా దేశంలో ఎంత లేడీస్ కి మర్యాద ఇస్తాం అని ఒక మాట. Which continues to be the rape capital of the world. మన కంట్రీలో జరిగినంత రేపు, మన దేశంలో suicides of women, female feticide కానీ, డౌరీ డెత్స్ కానీ, అవంతా ఒక పక్క పెట్టండి, తీసేయండి. కానీ పొద్దున లేచి ఐగిరి నందిని నందిత మేదిని మహిషాసుర మర్దిని చదివేస్తాం, లక్ష్మీ స్తోత్రం చదివేస్తాం, ఇవన్నీ చేసేసుకుంటాం. సో సింబాలిజం కి మనం చాలా మర్యాద ఇస్తాం. ఆ సింబాలిజం లోపల చూసినప్పుడు కూడా Ambedkar was not a symbolic leader of the Dalits. He was a vociferous leader. He was neither ashamed nor was he apologetic of the cause that he was fighting. He made it very clear that there are voices in this country that are not being heard. There are voices in this country that require to be heard. And a non-inclusive growth of the Indian Republic will shatter the Indian Republic. And if you see today, the rumblings that you hear in our society largely come from these sectors of people who, for whatever reason, are not part of the inclusive growth that we all talk about. The consequence of which is that come April, come December, there are enough statutes to have rose garlands and marigold garlands for B.R. Ambedkar. We have enough colonies and sabhas named after Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. But even today, we have Khap Panchayats in this country which do not accept the marriage of a Dalit, the marriage of a person in the forward community. Part of this is not merely because it's a Dalit versus forward community divide. It's also a social, economic vertical between all communities in India, not necessarily Dalit. But when it is Dalit, it is sharper and more dangerous. And when I say more dangerous, I mean it is more fatal to the Dalit who dares to marry. Because in our state, we know the case of Hemant. He was a forward community man. He fell in love with a girl of another forward community and he was killed. So it's not necessarily a marriage with a Dalit alone. But if it is a Dalit, it is even more serious in our country. And there lies the twist to the tale. Ambedkar was not afraid of saying that I belong to this community and it is necessary to listen to the voice of this community. Because if this community continues to be exploited, continues to be excluded from the growth models of this country, then all this GDP, GNP, NNP, PNP and all that we are talking about makes no sense. We can't create a new black regime in our country and talk about black exploitation and pray at Martin Luther King in America. But we do it. Our own NRIs who go to wherever Martin Luther, I think Atlanta or Georgia, wherever his museum is, they'll all go and pray him, respect him as a civil liberties leader. But how many of them are willing to cross the line? I don't know. So, while we need to understand that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was the chairperson of the Constituent Assembly, that he brought in all his experience into the making of the Indian Constitution, to today polarize or to say that this Constitution is the gift of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to the country will not only be false, will not only be historically incorrect, will not only be damaging, but would be also insulting to the integrity and intelligence of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Please let us stop doing this. 1983 India World Cup గెలిస్తే కపిల్ దేవ్ వాళ్ళని గెలిచిందా, మదన్ లాల్ వాళ్ళని గెలిచిందా, ఆ రోజు సాయంత్రం హైయెస్ట్ స్కోర్ కొట్టిన శ్రీకాంత్ వాళ్ళని గెలిచిందా, మదన్ లాల్ బౌలింగ్ చేసి వివియన్ రిచర్డ్స్ వికెట్ తీసుకుండకపోతే మనం గెలిచే వాళ్ళం కాదు. ఫస్ట్ ఓవర్ లో బల్విందర్ సింగ్ సంధు ఆ ఓపెనింగ్ వికెట్ తీసుకుండకపోతే మ్యాచ్ గెలిచిండకపోవచ్చేది. క్రికెటే మన దేశంలో 1983లో అంత అయినప్పుడు ఎవరి వల్ల ఇది అయింది అని మనం చెప్పలేని పరిస్థితుల్లో ఉన్నప్పుడు ఒక రాజ్యాంగం మనము ఒక మనిషి వలన అయింది అని చెప్పడం మూర్ఖం. You cannot historically say that the Indian Constitution is a birthday gift given to the country of India on 26 January 1950 by B.R. Ambedkar. That can't work like that. Was he an important contributor? No doubts about it. Was he a more than average contributor to it? No doubts about it. Was he an unparalleled contributor to the Constitution of India? No doubt about it. But was he the only? The answer is no. We need to understand this difference. There is a new tendency growing in India. And this is again dangerous, not because I believe in Indira Gandhi or Rajiv Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi or Priyanka Gandhi's son or who. I hold no brief to the family. I don't believe in the family. But anybody who did not have 20 dinners with the Nehru family is my man. He's a great man. Anybody who's in a picture photograph with Nehru or his granddaughter or great grandson is a bad person, is not an Indian, throw him out. This polarization of a country as that family versus all of us. On that basis, let us not respect Ambedkar. Ambedkar deserves respect on his own. Ambedkar is not anti-Nehru or pro-Nehru. Ambedkar is Ambedkar. You don't have to test him from the standards of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Ambedkar did not test himself on the standards of Pandit Jawaharlal. Why are we doing it? Please, therefore, this new proprietorship, I am anti-Congress, therefore Ambedkar is my man, doesn't help. Congress, in those days, everybody was in Congress, everybody left Congress, everybody goes into Congress. Today, people who were in Congress 4 years ago are union ministers. Don't we know it? Mrs. India, if you have forgotten the name. So, this anybody anti-Nehru is a great leader in this country. B.R. Ambedkar and Nehru had legal and political differences. Therefore, Ambedkar is great. Another topic. Nehru manchoda, cheddoda, and politics correcta, kada. Ivalti session lo mana maatladne avasarame ledu. Ambedkar by himself is a brilliant leader, a patriot beyond discussion, and a man whose legal acumen has stood in this country as a great test. Today, as I'm talking to you, one newspaper today said that two economies neighboring our country, one country whom we tried to help, as a consequence of which we lost one prime minister, and another country with whom we are constantly at war one time or the other. Both the economies are in shambles. Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Today, if you look at the post-World War countries, you can hardly name 10 countries across the globe that started, continued, and are still functional democracies. And this is one of the greatest contributions of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to this country. Again, I'm saying, when I say this is one of the greatest contributions of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, I'm not saying it is the contribution of B.R. Ambedkar alone. He was a part of that cream that ensured that we have a system governed by the rule of law. We have a constitutional form of government, and it is that constitutional form of government which is being exploited, which is being masqueraded sometimes being abuse. We are a functional democracy, unlike most other third world countries that started off their tryst with destiny in the name of democracy. Where do we place this greatness? The Nehruvians will tell you that it is because Nehru set the high standards of a Western style democracy in India, and that he was a exemplary democrat. People who don't like Nehru, they have started liking Patel, not because they know Patel, but because they don't like Nehru. Patel is a great man. And they will tell you that it is because Patel unified this country, we are a unified democracy. I don't understand how being a unified country becomes a unified democracy, but that's their logic. So it be it. The downtrodden, the really socially backward downtrodden, namely the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, will say it's all because of B.R. Ambedkar. My simple submission is it is because of all of them and a lot of unnamed martyrs who gave up their life or who spent their life for this great country. Move further. You must understand that unlike the new regime, which largely follows old regimes, progressive taxation concept ni mana deshamlo chala varaku serious ga maatladindu Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He was one of those who said low income groups should not be taxed at all. But then nobody has followed it. And every time new governments come, there are people who say, this government will remove income tax completely because income tax contributes very little to the national income. And then we'll have all kinds of financial wizards discussing at the end of the budget session, what is all the growth rate patterns, what are the parameters, double vetera, double vetera, the growth in the end of the day, we all pay more, we all eat less, better roads, bigger buildings, the rich grow richer, the poor go poor. In a country where poverty is alarmingly increasing, in a country whose growth rate is alarmingly falling, in a country where unemployment is a huge challenge 60, 70 years after 1947, Ambedkar's argument opposing income tax for low income groups is contextually relevant even today. Give it a thought. Spare a thought. He contributed to the land revenue tax. He was a man who said excise duty. He was also, interestingly, I don't know how many political followers know. In compare even to economies, democracies like America and Britain, universal adult franchise came to India at a single time. In all other countries, adult franchise came for men first and women later. Universal adult franchise became automatic in India thanks to B.R. Ambedkar. That is when he spoke about women empowerment, not by making one person as the president of India. One great aspect of the man is he did not speak too much. There was not too much of man ki baat. Here was a man who was spending more time doing what he believed was right for the country. Yes, the Hindu bill was something that he wanted in the country. And those of you who believe that Nehru was anti-Hindu, Patel was pro-Hindu, please understand both Nehru and Patel opposed the Hindu bill. Both of them did. What would have happened if, again, there's this question, Patel Prime Minister, he would have done greater than Nehru. No, you don't live history with ifs and buts. History is a given. Even Mughal India would not have been together, forget Indian India. British this whole dominion of India may not have been together, we don't know. So you don't live history by hypothesis. So to answer whether Ambedkar would have been a better Prime Minister of India than Nehru or Patel or somebody else, or Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad or Morarji Desai or Lal Bahadur Shastri, I have no answer. Because I believe that very approach to history is suspect. He, as a labor minister, successfully led to the reduction of working hours from 12 hours to 8 hours. And that's why it's gone today. Because today we are all bending backwards to support outsourcing in our country. And why do they outsource? Because labor in India is cheap. And what are the working hours of multinationals in our country? 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours. They don't say work for 14 hours. They say this is the work given to you. You'll have to do it today. We have no labor commissioners who look at the foreign market in our country today at all. Salute to B.R. Ambedkar, who said, bring it down from 12 to 8 hours. Maybe today, if all the people who are sitting and celebrating the birthday of Dr. B.R., if they can bring about that change of ensuring all multinationals work only for 8 hours, we have done enough for the memory of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Let's do that. Here was a man who spoke about employment exchanges. Today, government does not employ anybody. నేను చిన్నగా ఉన్నప్పుడు గవర్నమెంట్ లో ఉద్యోగం దొరికిందంటే చాలా గొప్ప. ఇవాళ nobody wants to apply for government. మల్టీనేషనల్స్ లో ఉద్యోగం దొరకకపోతే ఎంటెక్ చేసి కాల్ ఆఫీస్ లో డబ్బులు వచ్చే జీతం లేకుండా అక్కడ కూడా ఉద్యోగం రాకుండా ఉంటే అప్పుడు ఎప్పుడో 5 ఏళ్లకో 4 ఏళ్లకో ఒక్కసారి పబ్లిక్ సర్వీస్ కమిషన్ ఒక తప్పు ఎగ్జామ్ పెట్టి దాంట్లో 10 కేసులు జరిగి దాంట్లో మిగిలినోడు గవర్నమెంట్ సర్వీసులు చేయాలి. Public sector undertakings మూసేస్తున్నాం, అమ్మేస్తున్నాం. So what are those employment exchanges of which Dr. B.R. Ambedkar spoke so greatly? What are we doing? The great democrat in Ambedkar dies with our democracy. Because today we are hardly a functional democracy. We just talk democracy here, there, loudly. The great man who spoke about poverty versus the rich. Look at the taxation system in this country. So Ambedkar has gone for a 6 there. The man who spoke about a religion that does so much of vertical exploitation. And he moved to Buddhism because he found it a liberal space. What do we do? మా కోర్టులో నిన్న కేసు శ్రీమన్నారాయణ అనాలనా రామచంద్రమూర్తి అనాలనా విష్ణు సహస్రనామం చదవాలనా చదవకూడదా? రాముడు పెండ్లిలో జిఆర్ స్వామి ఒక గ్రామ దేవతను తిట్టడమా తిట్టకూడదా? అది ఎప్పుడు తిట్టాడు? 40 ఏళ్ల ముందు తిడితే ఇవాళ ఎందుకు వచ్చింది? ఇది మన దేశంలో మనం చేసే రాజకీయాలు. అండ్ ఈ రాజకీయాలు చేస్తూ అరే ఏప్రిల్ వచ్చింది బై బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ బర్త్డే ఉంది, మనం ఒక హాలిడే తీసుకుందాం, ఆయన ఒప్పుకోవడం చెప్పేసి మన పనులు మనం చేసుకుందాం. This will have to stop. As a labor member in the Viceroy's Executive Council, Ambedkar framed laws on women labor in India, which include men's maternity, women labor welfare, women and child labor protection, maternity benefits for women, restoration of ban on women and for underground coal workers, and equal pay for equal work irrespective. The equal pay for equal work 1946 లో మాట్లాడిన బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ 1980s లో ఏషియాడ్ చేస్తున్నప్పుడు కూడా కాలేదు మన దేశంలో. And I'm sure Nehru downwards, everybody every year said great Ambedkar every year. So how do we recall this great man? Do we again see him as a leader? Madigana, Malana, Dalita, Estina, ala chuddama. రాజ్యాంగంని ఆయననే పూర్తిగా రాసి మహాభారతంని వ్యాసుడు డిక్టేట్ చేస్తే గణపతి రాసుకున్నట్లు ఒక మూఢనమ్మకంతో మనము ఈయననే అంత చేసేసాడు అని అనుకోవడమా? లేకపోతే ఆయనకి ఇవ్వాల్సిన మర్యాదతో ఆయనకి ఇచ్చి ఆయన ఆలోచనలని ముందు సాగించడమా? I leave you with this thought, because in the answer to that question lies the true understanding of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Thank you very much. Sir, I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. సుమారుగా మీరు 45 నిమిషాల సమయం పాటు 40 నిమిషాల సమయం పాటు డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ భారత రాజ్యాంగం అనేటువంటి విషయం మీద చాలా లోతైనటువంటి అధ్యయనం చేశారు. ముఖ్యంగా విశ్లేషించడం అనేటువంటి జరిగింది. భారత రాజ్యాంగానికి సంబంధించినటువంటి విషయాల్లో ఈ మధ్య కాలంలో 3 రోజుల క్రితం భారత ప్రధాన న్యాయమూర్తి అయినటువంటి వారు ప్రభుత్వాలు న్యాయ వ్యవస్థను విమర్శిస్తున్నాయనేటువంటి విషయాన్ని చెప్తూనే భారతదేశంలో పేదరికం ఇంకా ఉంది అనేటువంటిది విషయాన్ని మరీ పర్టికులర్ గా చెప్తేనే అంబేద్కర్ అనేటువంటి దళితుడు కాదు, ఆయన ఒక జాతీయవాది అనేటువంటి విషయాన్ని పర్టికులర్ గా మరొకసారి చెప్తూనే అంబేద్కర్ గారికి పూలదండలు వేయొచ్చు కానీ నేటికి కాపు పంచాయతీలు ఇంకా ఈ దేశంలో జరుగుతున్నాయి అనేటువంటి విషయాన్ని మరొకసారి గుర్తు చేస్తూ వారి యొక్క ఇంట్రెస్ట్, వారి యొక్క ముఖ్యమైనటువంటి విషయాలను ప్రధానంగా ఈ యొక్క 45 నిమిషాల సమయం లోపల మీరు విశ్లేషించడం జరిగింది. మీకు మా తెలంగాణ జనవేదిక తరఫున ప్రత్యేకమైనటువంటి ధన్యవాదాలు సార్. ఇప్పుడు ముఖ్యంగా ప్రధానంగా ప్రొఫెసర్ సుధాకర్ గారు, ప్రొఫెసర్ సుధాకర్ గారు.
థ్యాంక్ యూ. Thank you very much. Am I audible, please?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
I was very closely watching the discourse of Mr. Ravichandar, a very, very critical appraisal of Dr. Ambedkar and his contemporary relevance. I could find another point is that it is something like that, sensitizing the informed citizenry as a great person, the contemporary society. And another also important thing that I could be able to understand is that the entire lecture is in abstracted manner, unless the people who are listening has some kind of broad view about Ambedkar. Probably there may be a lot of linking with the missing links. And while on one aspect I would like to respond on it, Dr. Ambedkar and the reservation for only 10 years. It's a reservation for 10 years is specifically mentioned in Constitution only in order to develop politically development, upliftment of people, and one must look into the socio-economic and other aspects of a particular contemporary period when the entire Constituent Assembly consisting of very many, the configuration itself is such that many people have reposed confidence on Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, not basing, and never ever. I had been going through whenever I can find time into the CAD Constituent Assembly debates, where not a single person has criticized Ambedkar basing upon the community. And other thing I would like to tell us, the one Nazimuddin Ahmad, I believe, was very critical about Ambedkar on each and every issue. And people may think that he was summarily criticizing. But other thing that I would like to that I saw from the other angle is that there should be people who criticize the things. And a critic will always be criticizing only basing on the future things which are not aspired. Now, on this, I would like to link about this 10 years reservation and that of Ambedkar's vision. Maybe, and it is written that in the existing circumstances, when we born new, a new country has taken birth, the assumption is that in another decade or so, probably politically, these downtrodden people may equip themselves. It's a kind of social change. సామాజిక పరివర్తన అంటాం కదా మనం అట్లాంటిది ఒక 10 సంవత్సరాల్లో కూడా బహుశా సామాజిక పరివర్తన జరగవచ్చు. అందులో దళితులు లేదా నిమ్న వర్గాల వాళ్ళు, అవుట్ కాస్టెడ్, బ్రోకెన్ కాస్ట్ ఆర్ వాట్ ఎవర్ థింగ్స్ యూ కాన్, and which is a system that is system generated evil, which is existing since time immemorial in a chaturvarna vyavastha. And his vision appeared to be a bit wrong, that in a decade or so, people may be politically empowered. And that has been put in the constitution. And after 10 years, it was proved that the estimation of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was not correct. So therefore...
Can I interrupt for 1 minute?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt? Two things I wanted to tell you. One, I did not say it should be for 10 years.
Yeah.
My problem is even today they are nowhere.
That's what I have come to that point.
I think Dr. Ambedkar included, all of us underestimated the backwardness of the Dalits in this country and the refusal to bring them into the mainstream after 70 years.
Ravichandra Garu, my vision is Ambedkar is after all is a human being.
Correct.
Might be erred because his understanding maybe such that because he was being respected much in the constitutional debates, and probably in only 10 years, there is going to be a sea change. But unfortunately, it would do nothing. So therefore, in view of the constraint that is a past, that it is there in the constitution, it is a compelling condition to enhance not more than 10 years. So that is how for the last 70 years it has been enhanced. And in my classroom, I say that this kind of reservation policy should have to be continued since for some more time. Some more time means it may continue for centuries as well. Because so far as the present experience shows that the empowerment of these people could not be achieved in a decade or so. So therefore, it naturally has to be increased. On this point, Ambedkar's estimation appears to be wrong. He thought that it may be everything would be set out. So therefore, his estimation is wrong, and of course, it is being continued at 70 years, 8 years, 9 years. It will be going on unto the till really we can able to achieve what we are thinking of, what is the constitutional mandate. And other thing is this sea change I could able to find normally that Ambedkar is being associated with only downtrodden people today, but never in the Constitutional Assembly. And in his writings and his contribution, never he has been he was not struggling hard so far as writing of the fundamental law of the land on the straits. But afterwards, so because the fact that ours is a traditional society, and more particularly Hindu traditional society, which is committed for a kind of chaturvarna vyavastha, and panchamas are nowhere finding in this four varnas, avarna, asprishya, outcasted, broken caste, and all these things have been experienced. But in spite of all those things also, though you have got a lot of information with you about the contribution of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar on each and everything, but maybe I got to understand is that maybe due to certain constraints, you could not elaborate this. Like for example, his works, like the value of rupee or something like that, or the Central Bank of India, that is Reserve Bank of India, and its prominence in importance, economic aspect, and many more things. There are many more things are there.
Yes.
But unfortunately, the thing is that we are only concerned only with that of reservation policy or favorable treatment, this and that. In fact, this favorable treatment is something which is supposed to be there when there are inequalities are persisting and existing. No, I can understand, Mr. Chandar. You could have continued something more elaborately, so that
I don't believe that I should speak for such a long time. నేనే చాలాసేపు మాట్లాడనే ఒక ఫీలింగ్ నాకు.
అంటే
And
ఏంటంటే
నేను దళిత వర్గాల గురించి చాలా అంబేద్కర్ గారు చేసింది తప్పు అని అన్నే లేదు.
నేను అంటలేదు.
అండ్ ఈ రోజు కూడా నన్ను అడిగితే మనం రిజర్వేషన్స్ ని సరిగ్గా పట్టించుకోలేదు. దాని we have not followed it in letter and spirit. That is why it has failed in our country. Not because the medication is bad.
No. Sir, this is a favorable treatment is something which has to be looked from the sociological point of view.
Correct.
And the very usage of word reservation is something irksome. It's not, it's a kind of thing when if you cannot apply the rule of equality before equality among the unequals.
Justice Iyer said
Equality
it
before
beautifully.
law, your article
Justice
14
Krishna
cannot be
Iyer
applied.
said-
That's what you
Justice
cannot.
Krishna Iyer said treating unequals as equals is inequal.
That's what. So equality clause is not a universal clause as per Article 14. So it has to apply only among the equals. And when there is an inequality persists in this society, in such cases, the favorable treatment is supposed to be there, which we normally call as a reservation policy or this or that. So thank you very much. Subsequently, maybe depending upon situation, I may also be coming in and interacting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam, Professor Vijayalakshmi. Madam, Professor Vijayalakshmi. Professor Vijayalakshmi.
She unmuted, I don't know.
There is a question on the chat box.
Yes, sir. Yes, I was about to say that.
Why is the justice system so terrible in spite of many in the Constitution Assembly as well as framing being lawyers? Maybe that is the reason. But that's on the lighter side. No, what happens is this, as I told you in the very beginning, we have a very good constitution. మీరు ఈ మంచి హాస్పిటల్స్కి వెళ్ళండి, డాక్టర్ చాలా మంచోడు ఉంటాడు, హాస్పిటల్ చాలా బాగుంటుంది. పారామెడికల్ ఉంటాయి, దానివల్ల మనుషులు చచ్చిపోతుంటారు, ఓవర్ బిల్లింగ్ అవుతుంది. ఈ వ్యవస్థలో ఏమేమి ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ ఉన్నాయి అని మనం ఏ రోజు కనుగలుగుతామో అవన్నీ న్యాయ వ్యవస్థలో కనిపిస్తున్నాయని మీకు తెలిసిపోతాయి. ఈ న్యాయ వ్యవస్థని నడిపే వాళ్ళు ఎవరు? మీరు నేను ఈ దేశంలో పుట్టి, ఈ దేశంలో పెరిగి, ఈ దేశంలో చదువుకుని, ఈ దేశంలో మిగతా వాక్స్ ఆఫ్ లైఫ్ లో ఉన్న తప్పులతో బ్రతికి పైకి వచ్చిన వాళ్ళమే అక్కడ ఉన్నవాళ్ళు. సో వాళ్ళు అక్కడ పోయిందనే వాళ్ళు దేవతలుగా మారుతాయని అనుకోవడము, వాళ్ళు చాలా బాగా న్యాయం చేసి మనకు అందరికీ న్యాయం అవుతుంది అనుకోవడం మనము. The day we stop worshipping demigods, this legal system will improve.
Professor Vijayalakshmi madam.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, madam. Please, madam.
I was just referring to the last draft paper submitted by Dr. Ambedkar. దాంట్లో కొన్ని పదాలు చాలా ఇంప్రెసివ్ గా కనపడ్డాయి. I just add to Professor Sudhakar, it is Naziruddin who has worded the Ambedkar constitution not as a drafting constitution, but it's a drifting constitution. ఇది ఒక చాలా పెయిన్ఫుల్ గా అనిపిస్తుంది. ఎందుకంటే ఇవాళ 70 ఏళ్ల తర్వాత కూడా మనం ఆ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ నే ఫాలో చేస్తున్నాం కాబట్టి అది ఒకటి డ్రిఫ్టింగ్ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ అవ్వడానికి వీలు కాదు. ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎ డ్రాఫ్టింగ్ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ అని అనాల్సిందే. రెండవ వర్డ్ ఆయన ఏం వాడారంటే, ఈ వర్డ్ సెక్యులర్ అనేది ఆయన టైంలో రాలేదు మన ప్రియంబుల్లో. కెన్ యు హియర్ మీ?
Yeah, madam, please.
సో సెక్యులర్ వర్డ్ మనకి 42nd అమెండ్మెంట్ లో వచ్చింది. అంతకుముందు సెక్యులర్ అనే వర్డ్ అవసరం రాలేదో మరి ఎందుకు యాడ్ చేయలేదని
Madam, let me interrupt you. 1947 లో నుంచి 1950 వరకు ఈ కాన్స్టిట్యూయెంట్ అసెంబ్లీలో డిస్కషన్స్ జరుగుతున్నప్పుడు కూడా సెక్యులర్ అనే మాట పదం వాడాలి అనే డిబేట్ చాలా జరిగింది. ఫైనలీ లాస్ట్ మూమెంట్ లో ఇది తేలింది, దాంట్లో నుంచి సెక్యులర్ అనే వర్డ్ తీసేశారు. సెక్యులర్, సోషలిస్ట్ ఆ మాటలు తీసేశారు. తర్వాత అఫ్ కోర్స్ 42nd అమెండ్మెంట్ 1975-76 లో ఇందిరాగాంధీ
76 లో
ఇందిరాగాంధీ ప్రైమ్ మినిస్టర్ ఉన్నప్పుడు వచ్చింది.
But while speaking about the valedictory session, Dr. Ambedkar says, he compares the two words, religious based politics లేకపోతే నేషనల్ ఫీలింగ్. ఈ రెండు పదాలలో ఏది సూపర్ సీడ్ అవుతుంది అనేది ఒక ప్రధానమైనటువంటి డిస్కషన్ అని పెట్టినట్టు మనకు లిటరేచర్ లో తెలుస్తుంది. సో వెన్ పీపుల్ గో విత్ religion, he concludes that we lost our freedom. అందుకని దేశాన్ని దేశంగా చూడండి, కానీ ఎప్పుడైతే మతం ఓవర్టేక్ చేస్తుందో మన స్వతంత్రం అనేటువంటిది లేదు అని చెప్పేసి జరగడం జరిగింది. కానీ ఇవాళ మనం చూస్తుంటే వర్డ్ సెక్యులర్ పెట్టడం వల్ల నష్టం జరిగిందా, పెట్టకపోతే బాగుండేదా? ఇవాళ మతపరమైనటువంటి పొలిటికల్ పార్టీస్ రావడం వల్ల దేశాన్ని మనమే తక్కువ చేసుకొని మన స్వాతంత్రం పోగొట్టుకుంటున్నామా అనేది నిజంగా అంబేద్కర్ గారి ఎంత ముందు చూపు అనేది అర్థమయ్యి ఆయన సెక్యులర్ వర్డ్ పెట్టలేదేమో అని నేను అనుకుంటున్నాను. ఇంకొకటి ఏమిటి అంటే ఆయన he compared with the American Constitution in జెఫర్సన్ మాటలలో చెప్తారు. అంటే ఎప్పుడైతే ఈ ఫండమెంటల్ రైట్స్ కి రెస్ట్రిక్షన్స్ ఉండాలి, ఫండమెంటల్ రైట్స్ విచ్ ఆర్ ఇన్కార్పొరేటెడ్ ఇన్ ది కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ ఆర్ నాట్ అబ్సల్యూట్ అనేది మనం 50 నుంచి చూస్తూనే ఉన్నాం. దే ఆర్ నాట్ అబ్సల్యూట్, దే గో విత్ రెస్ట్రిక్షన్స్. మరి రెస్ట్రిక్షన్స్ తీయాలా, ఎప్పుడు తీస్తారు, ఎందుకు తీయాలి? దీస్ వర్డ్స్ వర్ రియలీ ఎక్స్ప్రెస్డ్ ఇన్ హిస్ లాస్ట్ స్పీచ్. అయితే ఈ రోజు వరకు వాటిని యాడ్ చేస్తున్నాం కానీ తీసేయడం జరగట్లేదు. అందుకని ఫండమెంటల్ రైట్స్ మీద ఆయన చాలా ఫర్మ్ గా ఉన్నట్టు అనిపించింది. మరి సార్ మీరు కూడా యూ హావ్ ఎన్లైటెండ్ us and a very different analysis I could hear from you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Lakshmi Garu, I think you are right on the point that unlike the history of American constitutionalism, every time they amended their constitution, they expanded the Bill of Rights. In our country, very often when we amended the constitution to pay fundamental rights, we restricted the fundamental rights. In the whole Nehruvian era, if you see from the 50s, Golaknath and all those case law, what happened was, we were historically a country which was poor. And the Nehruvian socialism saw a conflict between laissez-faire economics on the one hand and growth modules on the other. And perhaps that is why we had a judiciary which thought that for India, the Nehruvian socialism was a necessity for the growth engines. అది ఎంతవరకు కరెక్ట్, ఎంతవరకు తప్పు అనేది అది వేరే సంగతి. ఈ పరిస్థితుల్లో ఇవాళ ఏమైంది, ఏ కారణాల వలన మనము ఫండమెంటల్ రైట్స్ ని రెస్ట్రిక్ట్ చేశాము, ఆ కారణాలకి కాకుండా వేరే రాజకీయ కారణాలకి వాడుకుంటూ అక్కడ సోషలిజము రాలేదు, లేజర్ ఫేర్ మిగిలినది.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor.
I have a question. Sir, I have a question. Can you throw some light on the relationship between Mahatma Gandhi and Ambedkar, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar?
You will obviously know that they were both critics of one another. We also know that there is a theory that at the Round Table Conference in London, both said I represent Dalits. And people see, there are sections of people who see Gandhi as the villain. And there are others who see Ambedkar as the villain. So these are narratives. The fact remains that both were great patriots. The fact remains that both had respect for one another. The fact remains that both of them had the interests of the country in place. Nobody called the other anti-Indian. Nobody called the other names. They had ideological differences. And I think two intellectuals or two great patriots like the Mahatma and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar were entitled to those opinions. I would believe that Gandhi's look at many of these things on untouchability was seen as an outsider's view, as a condescending vertical, while B.R. Ambedkar was one who had suffered and grown up, and therefore he knew it. He knew where the shoe pinches. But that does not drop Gandhi of any of his beliefs and his greatness. Yes, politically, they came from two different ends of the divide.
Professor Vishnu Charan Chaudhary, sir. Sir, Professor Vishnu Charan Chaudhary.
Professor.
Chaudhary, sir.
Am I audible?
Sir, please. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Do we have time? Can I speak for 10 minutes?
Okay, sir, please.
But today the discussion is on Ambedkar and the Constitution. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Sir.
Yes, Mr. Vishnu Charan, you're audible.
Yes.
Loud
So
and clear.
it is a very interesting topic because Ambedkar's birthday is on the next 14th and the nation will celebrate his birthday. Ambedkar is a great thinker, a genius, a philosopher, a revolutionary, a jurist par excellence, a prolific writer, a social activist, a critic, a statesman, an economist, a humanist to the core, and a constitutional expert, a visionary. He had made signal contribution in making the Constitution. That is why we call him as the father of the Indian Constitution. Why we call him as the father of the Indian Constitution? There are 2-3 reasons attributed to that. Number one, he was the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constitution. There were other members who were there in the committee, and prominent lawyers were there. And the advisor was Benagala Narasimha Rao, a member of the coveted ICS. And the draftsman was S.N. Banerjee. Secondly, he was defending on every issue, any question that is being put in the Constituent Assembly by the honorable members of the Constituent Assembly, he was defending every issue. Let me, I'm tempted to quote some of his observations. In reply to the criticism of over-centralization of the Constitution, Ambedkar said, I quote, a serious complaint is made on the ground that there is too much of centralization and that the states have been reduced to municipalities. It is clear that this view is not only an exaggeration, but is also founded on a misunderstanding of what exactly the Constitution contrives to do so. Second observation was on the federal provisions. Ambedkar said, I quote, however much you may deny power to the center, it is difficult to prevent the center from becoming strong. Conditions in the modern world are such that centralization of power is inevitable. Then defending on the Constitution that it was the members of the Constituent Assembly or the Constituent Assembly itself has resorted to plagiarism, Ambedkar defended. As to the accusation that the draft Constitution was reproduced a good part of the provisions of the Government of India Act 1935, I make no apologies. There is nothing to be ashamed of in borrowing. It involves no plagiarism. Nobody holds any patent rights in the fundamental ideas of the Constitution. What I'm sorry about is that provisions taken from the Government of India Act 1935 relate to the details of administration. I agree that administrative details should have no place in the Constitution. I wish very much that the drafting committee could see its way to avoid their inclusion in the Constitution. But this is to be said on the necessity which justifies their inclusion. Then also the working of the Constitution said, I feel this is workable. It is flexible and it is strong enough to hold the country together, both in peacetime and in wartime. Indeed, if things go wrong under the new Constitution, the reason will be not that we had a bad Constitution, but we will have to say that man is villain. Like that, on every issue, on directive trade policy, on fundamental rights, each article he defended, very successfully defended, to the satisfaction of the members in the conference. Coming to the other aspect of what is contribution, you know, our guest speaker was very vividly describing all these points. But the first thing that we have to give credit to Ambedkar is, he openly said, I am entering the Constituent Assembly not for any power, but to safeguard the interests of the scheduled caste. Because I am opposed to the caste system, lock, stock and barrel, and the caste system in India provides for social inequality and particularly untouchability, which is a stigma of the Hindu social order. So he was a great proponent of social justice, number one. Regarding social justice, Ambedkar said, I quote him, my social philosophy may be said to be enshrined in 3 words, liberty, equality, and fraternity. You also know that the contours of Ambedkar's social justice vision are twofold. First, before the independent Constitution of India, and second, as reflected in the Constitution of India. In the first place, Ambedkar's endeavors were directed towards the awakening of the depressed classes. This is very important. Their increasing consciousness of the basic human rights and securing the political, social, and educational safeguards to the untouchables. His philosophy was occupied with social amelioration, political enlightenment, and spiritual awakening. So Ambedkar's vision was to create social transformation in order to uphold the need of human dignity, equality, and liberty, rights, and civil facilities. So his life's mission, as he said, was to raise the depressed classes socially and economically to the status of human beings. That is the concept called Manuski. Even the word Dalit that we are using, I was referring to the meaning of the word Dalit. Dalit means the people who are grounded. That is the meaning of Dalit. Now nobody applies scheduled caste or these Harijan, these words. Regarding the other contribution of Ambedkar was, he supported the reservation. Reservation is otherwise known as the protective discrimination. It is also known as positive discrimination. It is also known as affirmative action. He defended saying that since for generations, these classes of people were deprived of their justice and their due. Afterwards also, I may give the example of Babu Jagajjeevan Ram, who was the greatest Dalit leader after independence. He was asked, Mr. Ram, do you favor reservation? He said, reservation has been required because injustice have been done. And he gave the example, look, a chamar, while doing the occupation, he may not be given respect. But if a scheduled caste boy becomes a thanedar, officer in charge of police station, a higher caste man goes to salute. Remember a situation where a scheduled caste man or a Dalit becomes the district magistrate, what will happen? His illustrious daughter Meera Kumar, former speaker of the Lok Sabha, once said, reservation is not somebody's gift, not somebody's charity. It is the demand, it is due to the scheduled caste. And so long as inequality will continue in the Indian society, reservation will continue. So originally the question was, it was for 10 years. Every 10 years we're expanding. So critics of reservation, they put different aspects. So pro-reservation, anti-reservation. In my opinion, this reservation has become totally politicized. They don't look into the philosophy why reservation was given, but political parties, they try to make twist to create vote banks, and they try to pollute the entire atmosphere. My suggestion would be, as Ambedkar said, the scheduled caste must be following three things. The slogan was organize, educate, and educate. If these three things will go simultaneously, I think Dalit empowerment is possible. But during the last 70 years or more, 75 years, what we have seen, only a fraction of the scheduled castes or scheduled tribes or those who are getting reservation, they have come up to the ladder. But the people at the base level who are landless laborers, they are suffering out of poverty, ignorance. They don't have access to health, education, and quality life.
Thank you, sir.
With these, I finish my comments.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. If anybody have any questions, please raise your hands. I'll unmute you so that you can ask any questions to Sri Ravichandra. So I have a question. If it is possible, you please try to enlighten us. In spite of so much reservation and all these things we are talking, why there is a demand for categorization of the Dalit sector, Dalit sections?
I didn't get the question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah. In spite of all these reservations and all that, 70 years, why there is a demand for categorization of Dalits?
If you have Vishnu here, I think the answer is what he said. Reservations haven't, it's only been a political drama in this country. And if you look at in Andhra Pradesh, for example, erstwhile state of Andhra Pradesh, the then government tried to categorize the Dalits because it was the case of the Madigas that all the reservation went in the name of Malas, and the Madigas were not getting reservation. So I hate to use this expression, they became the neo-Brahmins of that group. The translation of the philosophy of reservation in this country has been pathetic. And therefore, the have-nots who have not got a benefit out of the concept are saying, please redoctor this institutional therapy so that the medication reaches the needy.
James, do you have anything?
Yeah, I would like to comment on the debate of inequalities. I think it would be more apt to measure them in terms of wealth transfer than jobs. I mean, this is a comment because if you look at the how much wealth is accumulated in only 1% of the country, 1% population of the country, the accumulation, and then how it is distributed across sections. I think it tells a lot. I think there should be more focus on that. Thank you so much, Professor Ravichandra. It was. We preferred if we had spoken a little longer. We really enjoyed your eloquence, your not just the great depth, but the grip on language. We really enjoyed the way you delivered. And so one question, if I can answer, if you can I'm trying to articulate this question. You were saying that if this constitution fails, as it was a comment by some leader,
Yes,
SQL
yes,
leader.
yes.
If we fail the constitution, it is not because it is because that we have failed it. I think we have said it in
Not
those
because
lines.
the constitution has failed us, but because we have failed the constitution.
But as it is, we have failed the constitution, sir. I and also you have said that at that juncture and the polity of India 75 years ago, at that very important juncture, the leaders we had were very progressive. Unfortunately, we are bereft of them. We don't find them today here. And I would like to ask you, a question, not exactly on the subject here, but are there any leaders like that today in today's polity? And since you are I don't mind if you can name some names, because you're not shy about naming names, please.
No, I don't
give
find
some
names, and I can't find one. The Messiah is yet to come. The Messiah is to come. And right, I think, maybe, in various fields. For example, we had the golden era of film music in the 60s and in the 70s. We don't have it today. Like that, we had a great leadership potential starting from the Gokhale Tilak era right up to the Nehru Shastri era. But after that, it's been a vacuum. Sometimes historically also nothing grows under the banyan tree. And today there is not so much a devoid of leadership as there is a devoid of moral fabric in this country. Now, in a country that suffers a moral vacuum, the best of leaders will fail into insignificance. On the other hand, men like Lal Bahadur Shastri, I take that example without fear of contradiction. I don't think historically his 18 months was the greatest period of the history. Economically, if you look at his growth parameters during the 18 months, it was not great. But we will be thankful for him because he was honest. He placed honesty, integrity, outrightness so high in the priorities of things. And that is why the Shastri era of a mediocre prime minister is much greater than a brilliant prime minister like Manmohan Singh, who is one of the worst prime ministers that we have had in recent times. The conflict is not so much about the quality of leadership, but it is about leadership, the quality of the moral fabric of contemporary.
Absolutely.
There lies the catch. And go to the Pune Pact, which somebody had asked me. See, what had happened during the roundtable conference was both of them were saying, I'm the representative, I'm the representative. This led to one of Gandhi's many fasts. And people began to worry that if Gandhi died, Ambedkar would be blamed for it. So they tried to hold up with his arsenal for logic and reason and all, but you know how Gandhi was. So after 4 days of fast, on September 24th, 1932, Ben visits Gandhi at Yerawada and then signs what is called the Pune Pact, where they agreed that they will not have separate electorates, but they will have separate constituencies, which is of course there even today. They have the constituencies. That was in answer to a question about the Pune Pact that somebody had asked.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, one raised hand is there. Ashok Kumar, Gundu.
Sir, good evening, sir. Sir, we are very much interested, sir. We loved your wonderful lecture. Sir, I have a doubt, that is, sir, since ours is a democratic culture, democratic constitution, as everyone knows, democracy is a great concept. Democracy is a very, very broader word. when it includes itself socialism and secularism and other things, what is the necessity of having again secularism and socialism in a preamble, sir? Don't
Not
we think that,
necessary at all. Political drama,
sir? Thank you, sir. Okay.
not at all necessary, political drama.
Thank you. Ashok Babu Penli.
నమస్కారం సార్. ఇవాల్టి ఇవాల్టి సెషన్ చాలా బాగుంది. ముఖ్యంగా డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ కాంట్రిబ్యూషన్ టు ద మేకింగ్ ఆఫ్ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్, ఇండియన్ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ అండ్ హిస్ కాంట్రిబ్యూషన్ దళిత్ కోణంలో ఎట్లా వాళ్ళు హైలైట్ చేసి ఓన్ చేసుకుంటున్నారు. ఇప్పుడే చెప్పినట్టు ప్రతి ఆస్పెక్ట్లో పొలిటికల్ యాంగిల్, నెక్స్ట్ సమాజంలో వాళ్ళకు ఒక గుర్తింపు రావాలి, ఒక పొజిషన్ పొందాలి అనే కోణంలోనే జరుగుతున్నది. దానికోసం అనవసరమైన ఖర్చులు, అనవసరమైన రాద్ధాంతాలు చేస్తున్నట్టు కనపడుతున్నది. ముఖ్యంగా ఇప్పుడు అందరికీ ఓటు హక్కు. ఈ ఓట్లను ఎట్లా మనం సంపాదించుకోవాలి, పవర్లో కూర్చోవాలి, లేదా భవిష్యత్తులో మళ్ళీ రిటైన్ చేసుకోవాలి అనే దానికే ఈ ప్రయత్నాలు, ఈ లీడర్షిప్ జరుగుతున్నది. యాక్చువల్గా రాజ్యాంగాన్ని అమలు పరచడానికి యంత్రాంగం చేయాల్సిన పనిని నాయకులు ఏ విధంగా నిర్వీర్యం చేస్తున్నారో మనం మేధావులుగా ఆలోచించాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంది. నెక్స్ట్ సెక్యులరిజం అనే కాన్సెప్ట్ ఇవాళ ఏ విధంగా ఒక బ్రాండ్ ఇమేజ్ తోటి ఒక పోలరైజ్డ్ అంటే మతంలో పుట్టిన కాబట్టి ఈ పలానా పార్టీ కాకుండా వేరే దానికి నేను చెప్పడానికి కానీ, అంగీకరించడం కానీ, లేకపోతే అందులో పనిచేయడానికి కానీ పోతే నన్ను ఓన్ చేసుకునే పరిస్థితి లేదు అనే రోజులు వచ్చినాయి. అట్లా అయితే భవిష్యత్తులో యూనియన్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా ఎట్లా విచ్ఛిన్నమవుతుంది అనేది కూడా చూడాల్సిన అవసరం ఉన్నదని ఈ సందర్భంగా తెలియజేస్తూ నాకు ఈ అవకాశం ఇచ్చినందుకు ధన్యవాదాలు.
థ్యాంక్ యూ అశోక్ బాబు గారు. సార్ ఇంకెవరైనా మిత్రులు మాట్లాడేవారు, ఎవరైనా ప్రశ్నలు సార్ను సమాధాన ప్రశ్నలు కానీ ఏమైనా డౌట్స్ ఉంటే అడగండి ప్లీజ్.
ఒక క్వశ్చన్ అది శ్రీకాంత్ అడిగాడు. ఐ థింక్ ద స్పీకర్ has already sir has answered it. There's no point. రాజమౌళి గారు మీరు ఏమైనా అడుగుతారా? కుమార్,
మనోజ్.
no, this Swecha, I think you are an advocate from your Vizag, Swecha.
No, Swecha is from Hyderabad.
Okay. Okay, I don't think there are any questions.
మనోజ్ రెడ్డి గారు.
అందరికీ నమస్కారం అండి. ఇప్పుడే ముందుగా అందరికీ శ్రీరామనవమి శుభాకాంక్షలు తెలుపుకుంటూ అడ్వకేట్ రవిచంద్ర గారికి థ్యాంక్ యూ సో మచ్ ఫర్ ఎలాబరేట్ అవుట్లుక్ టువర్డ్స్ అంబేద్కర్ సార్. రియలీ Ambedkar was no doubt is a father of constitution and he sacrificed his life to the country and to the constitution, no doubt about it. But in his last days, his mind and his thoughts were much attracted to Buddhism and he himself converted to Buddhism, sir. What's the reason behind it? May I know it? Because he used to follow some karma siddhanta like that. What's the reason, sir?
The journey to religion is a personal journey. what ticks off the clock in a person is an extremely personal thing. And if you look at the perspective from a Ambedkar stance, he would perhaps say that the kind of Hinduism that was being practiced in India then, which is far better than what is being practiced today,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Was perhaps hurting the dignity, if I can use that word expression very carefully. It is this search for dignity, this search for a liberal human space, which is also the search for an inner peace. You know, men at 70 don't die without their God. They find gods. If they're not in peace with the gods that they know, then they may misunderstand the gods they don't as the perfect gods. Are they perfect gods? Are they imperfect gods? I don't know. I hope I had an answer for your question. Because when a man changes his faith, he's not changing his faith. From FAT to FAITH is such a personal journey that to even talk about it would require far more knowledge of Advaita in its real sense, not in the lumpen element understanding of Jai Shri Ram's. And therefore, I may not have a correct answer for your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You have already asked a question. Do you have another one? You have a raised hand.
Yes, sir. I want to speak, sir.
Ask a question. You don't speak, please.
Sir, sir, I would like to just a clarification in one regard, sir. Sir, everyone is of the opinion that there should be a reservation for downtrodden sections. Even courts also uphold it. But why don't we, sir, why don't we pay attention to the fact that Ambedkar himself achieved great heights. He became a great person without the support of reservation system. Why is it not possible for others to achieve great heights without reservation, as it happened in the case of great Ambedkar? Why can't we support in that regard also, sir? That is my.
లింకన్ అబ్రహాం లింకన్ లా చదవకుండా పెద్ద వకీల్ అయ్యారు కదా, నేను ఎందుకు లా కాలేజీలో పోయి చదువుకున్నానని అడిగినట్లుంది. యుగాల్లో ఒక మనిషి అలా కుడతారు. ఆయనను మనం ఎగ్జాంపుల్ గా తీసుకొని అందరూ ఆయనలాగా అవ్వచ్చు అంటే మూర్ఖత్వం కాలేదు. Then the next question is, let me ask you, ఒక కాశ్మీరీ పండిట్ ఇండియన్ ప్రైమ్ మినిస్టర్ అయిపోయాడు కదా, వాళ్ళందరూ ఎందుకు ఊరికి వచ్చారు కాశ్మీర్ నుంచి అని అడిగితే ఎలాగా జరగవు. ఒకటి. రెండోది, ఆ రోజు పరిస్థితులు ఎంత మోసంగా ఉన్నా ఈ రోజు పరిస్థితులు ఇంకా మోసంగా ఉన్నాయే. In so far as caste class divide, we are not a better India than we were in the 50s. We are a worse India today. We are far more polarized. Therefore, to take the best man, రాంచీలో అందరు ధోనీలు కాలేరు కదా. So the answer is, he was an exception. He doesn't become the rule.
I think there are no more questions. We'll call it a day. Thank you so much. Sir.
So before you call it a day,
Yeah.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I enjoyed being with all of you this evening.
Thank you so much, sir.
And it was a genuine attempt to de-God Ambedkar and make him the human being I like.
Absolutely, yes, you are right.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Yeah,
I thank Professor Janardhan for introducing you to this. I'm very thankful, and also we are honored by your presence here, sir. Thank you.
Indeed.
థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్. థ్యాంక్ యూ. తెలంగాణ జనవేదిక జూమ్ ఆన్లైన్ మీటింగ్ వచ్చేసి భారత బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ భారత రాజ్యాంగం అనేటువంటి అంశం పైన కీలకోపన్యాసం ఇచ్చినటువంటి శ్రీ రవిచంద్ర గారికి మా తెలంగాణ జనవేదిక తరఫున ప్రత్యేకమైనటువంటి ధన్యవాదాలు సార్. అదే విధంగా ఈనాటి కార్యక్రమంలో పాల్గొన్నటువంటి ప్రొఫెసర్ సుధాకర్ గారికి, ప్రొఫెసర్ విజయలక్ష్మి మేడం గారికి, ప్రొఫెసర్ విష్ణు చరణ్ చౌదరి గారికి, అట్లాగే మనోజ్ రెడ్డి గారికి, టి రవీంద్రరావు గారికి, ఉమా మహేశ్వర్ రెడ్డి గారికి, టి అశోక్ బాబు గారికి, పెళ్లి అశోక్ బాబు గారికి, జేమ్స్ గారికి, గుండు అశోక్ కుమార్ గారికి, ఇతర మిత్రులందరికీ కూడా పేరు పేరున ధన్యవాదాలు తెలియజేసుకుంటూ ఇవాళ ఈ అంశం ఇంతటితోని ముగించేసి వచ్చే వారంలో మరొక అంశంతో కలుసుకుంటామని తెలియజేసుకుంటూ అందరికీ మరొకసారి ధన్యవాదాలు. థ్యాంక్ యూ ఎవ్రీవన్. థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్.